Hi, everybody. It's Deborah Carter here with Preparation Tech. As part of our Black History Month series, I'm talking today to Tia Hopkins. Welcome. Tia is a cybersecurity expert, and she's here today to talk about the importance of cybersecurity, as well as this area as a potential study and career path for youth. So welcome, Tia. Thank you so
Thanks
much
so
for
much.
joining. And
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Great. Why don't we start with you explaining what you do and how it intersects with technology?
Sure. So my current role, I guess you could say my 9 to 5, is vice president of global solutions engineering at a cybersecurity organization, eCentire. So I guess to explain what I do, I can explain what the company does. So essentially, we provide threat hunting services for our customers. So we just have two global security operations centers that hunt for threats 24/7 and then respond to them on behalf of our customers. And so the team I lead pairs with our sales organizations, and we go out and have conversations with customers about their pain points. Are you having trouble figuring out which data to monitor, or where your data lives, or is it that you kind of have a handle on what you need to do, you don't have a team to support it, in addition to understand their infrastructure, right, so that we can make sure we'll be able to deploy our tools. And so for me, the intersection with technology from a cybersecurity perspective is really the understanding of threats and the impact that they have on organizations, how they proliferate throughout environments, and being able to articulate that to organizations based on their vertical compliance requirements and things like that, because it's going to be different, right, depending on the conversations that you're in. And in addition to that, I'm an adjunct professor at Yeshiva University, and I teach the network security course as part of the Master's in Cybersecurity program.
Great. Now, just to back up a bit, because there might be Black youth, other kids that don't understand what you mean by threats in the context of cybersecurity. Can you be specific and list some of those threats?
Yeah, sure. So there is the conversation around threats versus vulnerabilities. And so a vulnerability means you have infrastructure in your environment. So your servers, your routers, your switches, your vulnerabilities are the areas where an attacker could take advantage of your environment and pull off an exploit. The threat is, what is that? What can they do, right? And then beyond that, what is the impact to the environment, right? And that's what helps you assess the risk and determine which resources you want to apply to it. So, if you have a lot of users that are accessing corporate resources that maybe don't have the best cybersecurity hygiene, then you think about ransomware as a threat, right? Someone gets an email with kitty photos, they think it's cute, they click on it, all of a sudden someone's asking for money. So I would say ransomware is a common one. Phishing also as a precursor to that. Phishing is still one of the top vectors, and vectors is the way an attacker gets into an environment. So phishing is still one of the top attack vectors that attackers are leveraging to get into environments.
And what is phishing? What does that mean?
So phishing means I am phishing for information from you. So a phishing email would be, I'm going to send you an email that looks like it's real, but it's not. So it might be, hey, Capital One Bank here, we need you to update your information. A user clicks a link and is presented with a page that looks like it's Capital One, but it's not. They provide credentials, and then the attacker has those credentials at their disposal.
Hmm. What are some of the different specializations within cybersecurity?
There are so many, right? And I have this conversation a lot, and usually it's just part of me educating individuals to kind of help lower the perceived barrier to entry into cybersecurity and debunk those myths that you have to be a master coder, or you have to be super technical and have all this technical expertise to even consider a career in cybersecurity. And that's simply not the case, because while you do have the hands-on keyboard, I like to call them the keyboard warriors. That's actually where I thought I was going to be in my career, just behind the keyboard, doing penetration testing or red teaming exercises. And when you're doing red teaming, it's a form of penetration testing. So you're seeing where the vulnerabilities are, but you have a target. There's something that you're going after. in this environment that you're then going to present your findings back to the organization to say, hey, I was able to get there, and here's, where all your holes are in the environment, or I wasn't, looks like, you're good. I think roles like that are the ones most individuals are familiar with, the threat hunters, the blue team, which is responsible for managing the information coming out of the security tools in the environment. So I would consider those the more hands-on roles. But on the other side of that, you have the roles that aren't as technical, right? Somebody's got to be taking a look at privacy. Somebody's got to be paying attention to compliance. And so I like to call that hands-off or hands-free cybersecurity. So, on either side of it, I think if you're just passionate about keeping an organization safe, there's a place for you.
Awesome. And you bring up the word passion. I'm glad about that. What about cybersecurity fascinates you, intrigues you? And why should the average person care about cybersecurity?
I'll answer why the average person should care first, and then I'll talk about what intrigues me about it. So, I mean, cybersecurity impacts all of us. I think a large gap, at least from my perspective, in conversations about cybersecurity is that they typically tend to pertain to a business, and organizations need to do this to stay safe, and you want to protect your corporate assets and educate your users, but it really does apply to all of us. I mean, when we're talking about identity theft and someone stealing your funds via Facebook or PayPal or whatever it is, or getting access to your social security number or stealing your credit card information, that is all relative to cybersecurity. So I think why anyone should care is it's not just keeping an organization safe, it's keeping yourself safe. It's keeping your children safe. I was walking by my youngest son's room one day, and he's on his virtual reality game talking about how he lives in New York. And I just stopped. I'm like, hold on. Like, you don't give any information to anyone. I know that seems, not a big deal, but nowadays anything can be, leveraged to track down and steal and use someone's identity. So that's why the broad population should care about it. And obviously, larger scale, you think about businesses, and then you think about national security. So it gets really big, and it matters, right? And so, you think about not to get too political, but you think about what just happened in Washington last week, and not necessarily the physical aspect of it, but there was access to machines in the building that could have been taken out, and information could have been shared. And that's scary, especially if it's being shared with an adversary. And so these are all things that day to day, someone not in a cybersecurity profession would necessarily think about, but it's a very real thing. And so part of that is what keeps me passionate about it. But in addition to, the safety and the importance of safety, and how something can start so small and get so big with access to just this much information, I just love that cybersecurity in general sort of requires thinking outside the box and being a critical thinker, being able to think on your feet, not taking anything as it is. Don't take things at face value, dig beneath the surface. And it's just always a different problem to solve every day, or the same problem, but you have to approach it a different way. You'll hear things like, well, we figured out how to thwart this ransomware attack, but now there's a new variant. And so now we can't take the same approach. So it's always something. It's a game of cat and mouse for those of us on the good side of the fight versus the attackers. And, we get new tools, they pop new tools, and then we have to find a different way. And so it keeps me going. It's definitely not a career that you're one and done. You get the degree, you get the certification, and that's it. You have to stay on top of what's going on to remain in the know and relevant and able to really drive value.
Yeah. So you need to be a detective, right?
Yes,
Detective Tia.
Absolutely.
So Tia, take us back to your childhood. How did Tia Hopkins become Tia Hopkins, the cybersecurity expert? What were you like as a child? What did you like to do? What were your hobbies? What did you like to do in school? How did you grow up?
Yeah, the word I remember hearing most in school was nerd, because I've always been a lover of knowledge. I like to know how things work. Don't just tell me X plus Y equals Z. I want to know why. And even with my toys, I was never really into Barbie dolls, I like trucks, but I didn't like trucks to play with the trucks. I wanted the remote control trucks because I wanted to take them apart. I wanted to see how they work. I think I even got to a point where my mom was like, you know what, I'm just not gonna buy you anything else because you destroy everything. But for me, it wasn't destroying it. Like, this is, mom, this is important stuff here. So I mean, fast forward to when I was like 12, she bought me my first computer. And the short version of the story is I also built my first computer at 12 because, of course, the first thing I did was take it apart. And my mom walks in my room, and this machine that she bought me, that she worked so hard to get for me, was in a million pieces in the floor. And to her, it looked like a pile of junk. And I'm sitting there like, this is the best thing ever. But of course, the message from her was put it back together or else. Hence, I built my first computer at 12. But it's always been something that's just been part of me and the way my brain works. Like, yeah, that's cool what you said on the surface, but let's get deeper than that. What does that actually mean? And it really has paid off for me in my career, and being able to dig in and ask the right questions, because often you don't get the right answers unless you ask the right questions, even if you're asking someone that you feel should know, and that the answer that they give you is credible, right? I had experience early in my career that steered me away from doing that. Not to make a long story longer, but I was in a situation where something wasn't working the way it should. I called technical support, and they instructed me to do something that obliterated the server that I was working on. And I thought that I could follow their guidance because it's tech support, right? But after that experience, my nickname has changed from nerd to a million questions, because I really, really, really dig in, and I need to know the impact of everything that I'm doing. But I did not start out in tech, as my first job, but I would say my tech career started out when I landed my job with the phone company. I was installing DSL when it was considered high-speed internet. So I was ripping out, dial-up modems and putting in DSL, and I was getting questions around how to get this on Wi-Fi, how to get this on more than one computer. And I got tired of saying I didn't know. So I built myself a lab, got a couple books, got some hands-on experience, played around. And that's really when I really, really got bit by the IT bug and started to get roles in IT. And, it just kind of took off from there.
Awesome. Take us back to your university studies, because I read somewhere that you said it's all great. Like, you had, on the one hand, theoretical instruction and knowledge, but what you craved was really the practical stuff. And so
Yes.
how did you acquire your skills? What are the skills that you learn in pursuing IT and cybersecurity? Is it mostly programming?
Yeah, my background is in networking, actually. One of my favorite things to say is you don't have to know how to code to have a successful career in tech, to have a successful career in cybersecurity. I cannot code. If I had to learn it, I could. I've played around with like Python, and it makes sense. And if I did it every single day, I'd probably be really good at it, but it's just not what I do every day. So I'll learn it, and then I'll forget it. But yeah, when I started out and really pivoted into my first IT role, it was networking. So, I'm connecting routers and switches and setting up, virtual private networks and things like that. And I would say that connected really well to cybersecurity for me, because what I always tell individuals, if you're going to secure data, it's really important to understand how data moves. Because if I'm talking about, hey, here's this multi-factor authentication tool, you could be the most brilliant mind in the world and know how to configure and deploy this tool. But if you don't really understand the problem that you're solving and the implications of doing things one way versus another, then you're really not adding the level of value that's necessary. And I think that goes back to the theoretical versus applied knowledge. And part of the reason I wanted to teach is because through all three of my degrees, I have a bachelor's in IT, and then I have 2 master's degrees in cybersecurity. It was largely theoretical. So I learned a lot about a lot, but what was missing was, okay, what do I do with it now, right? Beyond writing a paper to articulate that I know where this fits into an environment. If this were on my plate, if this were my problem to solve, how would I do that? And so when I teach, I make sure that that's the approach I take. I tell my students, I'm not here to regurgitate what's in the book. I'm here to make sure you understand it and make you curious and make sure you understand how that applies to the real world. Because when you go into a job interview, it's not about answering all the questions with the right answer as you learned them in the book. What you're trying to articulate in an interview is how you're going to add value to that organization. And so you and 10 other applicants have the same certification, have the same degree. As a hiring manager, how do I know I want to go with if none of you have anything to show for it beyond that, right? And so building labs, working on projects, participating in things like capture the flag competitions, all these things show not only that you have hands-on experience and that you have applied knowledge, it also shows that you're passionate, right? You didn't just go to school and get this piece of paper and check out. You really want to be great at what you're doing. So
awesome. I wish I could take one of your courses. So, what were some of the most difficult challenges related to your study and your work experience? Did you face any specific challenges because you're Black and female and whatever else you are?
Yeah, that's always an interesting question. I am a bit bullish, and I had to learn at a very young age to, I guess, not need validation and just kind of push forward and do what I feel is right for me. So of course I experienced microaggressions. Nothing was ever like in my face, like, whoa, like you're really doing this because I'm a Black female. But there are microaggressions and they're as something as small as I'll give a presentation and then the feedback is, wow, you speak so well, or wow, that was great. Like not nodding head, validating I'm agreeing with you, just eyes wide, like, wow, she knows what she's talking about. I'm in shock. And I consider that a microaggression because that says to me that you weren't expecting much from me when I walked in this room. And so my motto to myself is, I will always be Black. I will always be a woman. There's nothing I can do about that. So I'm going to control the controllables, change the things that I can. And that turned into me being so passionate that I am just pushing to be so good at what I'm doing in my field that I can't be ignored. Like you don't even see color or gender anymore because my reputation precedes me. And I sometimes refer to it as inverse imposter syndrome, imposter syndrome being, well, should I really be in this role? Am I really qualified for this? Whereas I'm like, yeah, I am. Here I am. I'm here. And if you don't want to work with me, I mean, that's your loss. All right. I mean, you see what I got going on here? So that's really how I approach it. But I wouldn't say anything has been, major or impactful, but I do think it is largely just due to the way I approach it day to day that it can't get in here. It can't be allowed.
Fascinating you should say that. Yesterday, I interviewed Arlen Hamilton, who is the founder of Backstage Capital. It is a venture capital firm that kind of flips the narrative where most venture capital goes to white guys, firms led by, and she's saying, no, we only invest in firms led by people of color, women, and members of the LGBT. So she's just amazing. And she says the same thing because I say, what's it like to be in rooms with Mark Cuban and everything else? And she's like, I'm just as good as them. I deserve to be there. So yeah, I mean, self-talk is really important.
It is really important. And something that you learn is, you get in rooms with these individuals and I learned for myself that I was really blinded by titles. Like if someone was a VP or someone was a CEO, like that was instant credibility. They have this title, they must be amazing. But once I started to get in the room, with some of these individuals, and I've been in rooms with brilliant minds, like, whoa, I want to learn from that person. I want to follow them. But I've also been in the room with individuals with these titles. And I'm like, I've had this all wrong for so long. Like I'm in the wrong business. I could do that, and it really is it's an enlightening experience to and it helps you like, okay, well, they're just a person just like I am, right? It's a matter of what you've had exposure to, what you can speak to, your experiences versus things that you haven't, right? It's not know versus not know, and you're not less than because you don't know. Because another motto of mine is you're only going to catch me not knowing something one time, and I'm going to ask you and you're going to tell me or you're not. And I'm still going to go research it to make sure what you told me is right. So now I'm going to know that, moving forward.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Nice bridge into the next question. What is the mindset and what are the personal characteristics of people who are successful in cybersecurity? I ask you this because it might be a youth that listens to your response and recognizes themselves in it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is there's really a broad spectrum. But I would say whether you're hands-on or not, one of the big ones for me is attention to detail, because in cybersecurity, the devil really is in the details. Whether you're threat hunting, whether you're protecting an organization, whether you're managing compliance, attention to detail is incredibly important, both when you're establishing a program, a security program, and maturing a program, because you have to pay attention to trends that are going on. You have to validate what's going on with my peers. So that's really important. And then also, critical thinking as well, because often in cybersecurity, for one, professionals call things 4 or 5 different things, right? So we might be having the same conversation, speaking a different language. And as long as at the foundation, we understand what we're talking about, we're fine. Right? But if not, you could be going down a path that's not what anyone intended. And so with that comes that it's not always clear what needs to be done, right? And so being really confident in your knowledge and feeling confident enough and empowered enough to make a decision to move the business in the direction that the business needs to go in is important as well, especially when you move into more of a leadership role. It is a bit more spelled out at the individual contributor level, because those in leadership roles are responsible for making sure things are done kind of a certain way. But as you move into leadership, autonomy is important, and being able to think on your feet and being able to adjust, because I've worked with individuals that are great at what they do, but they're kind of like in this box. And that can, in certain situations, make you difficult to work with if you need to be flexible. Flexibility being the next one, really, really, really important. So I would say those are the sort of soft skills, right, that you want to have to be successful in the role. Obviously, the hard skills as they pertain to the role that you want to be in. You need to understand the technology. Like if you want to be a penetration tester, you need to understand hacker methodology, penetration testing methodology. So obviously the technical knowledge that goes into it. And then in here, you have to love it. You have to be passionate, right? I mean, I want to say it's the first thing I think about every day, but I'm being recorded. I have a family, right? I think about my family first, and then I think about what's going on in the industry. So they're pretty close. But to my earlier point, this is not a one and done. I did everything I need to do. I'm in cybersecurity. That's it. Technology in general, not just cybersecurity, is ever evolving, ever changing. Pre-pandemic, organizations were in a position where they could consider whether they wanted to move to the cloud or not. And I think the pandemic changed that. A lot of organizations didn't have a choice. So all right, we got a business continuity. We got to keep going. We got to put our stuff in the cloud. And so now you have organizations that have done that before they were prepared. So back to the cybersecurity piece, now you have opportunities for professionals that specialize in securing cloud environments to help these organizations make sure that their data isn't susceptible to being, stolen or modified by folks that are unauthorized.
Wow, so true about that. The cloud computing is just booming, which gives me an idea that I need to do an interview with someone in cloud computing. How can schools help kids or prepare kids for IT and for cybersecurity and for technology in general?
I think, well, I don't know how much better of a job schools are doing now than when I was in school, but I know that when I was in school, there was not a huge focus on it as a trade. It was like this extra thing that not all the schools did. It wasn't well defined. You were just good at computers, right? You weren't a technologist, or hey, maybe you should think about cybersecurity or coding. It was just, you should think about a job in computers. So I think making sure students are aware of the possibilities. And I know a lot of schools are, focused on STEM programs, which I think is great. But beyond coding, beyond the more popular roles that we see in technology in general, broaden that, right? So the different sectors of technology, so infrastructure or development, cybersecurity, but then, going into the possibilities within those disciplines as well. And, maybe some sort of testing, personality testing to help students figure out what direction they may want to go in based on the way they think. But a big one for me, though, is representation, especially when it comes to people of color. Because if I'm figuring out what I want to do for a career as a high school student, or even younger, if I'm thinking about it in middle school, it's likely that not many members of my family are going to be able to give me guidance on that. And so if I'm looking outward, and then I also don't see a lot of people that look like me successful in these roles, it doesn't really drive the confidence that I need to pursue a career in tech or cybersecurity, et cetera, because I'm wondering, can I be successful? And so that's part of the reason I do what I do. My hand in this is increasing representation, debunking the myths, and helping individuals understand what to look out for. It's fine that you've never seen technology before, but if it's something you're interested in, let's give it a shot. So representation, mentoring, letting students know what the possibilities are, and then of course access is another big one, right? Because you could, have a webinar where someone comes in and talks about all these great things and have students that are interested that don't have technology at home or don't have internet access at home. So having programs in schools that they can participate in to help level them up and just get them really interested. Because think about kids and young adults, when they really like something and latch onto it, they'll figure out a way to get it done. They will figure out a way, but it's that interest that has to be driven to get them there.
Exactly. And before I forget, you've organized a group for women of color in cybersecurity. Can you talk really quickly about that?
Yeah, sure. So back in October, I founded Empower Cybersecurity, and the goal literally is to empower women of color and drive confidence within women of color to be successful in careers in cybersecurity. And so we are at about, I'd say, 200 members in the first few months that we've been in existence. And about 60% of those women are either brand new to the space or early career. And so it's all about, here's how this works. What you heard over there, that's not true. I've been down this path. Let me help you. And so in January, we launched some programs as part of what we call EHC Institute. So we have 3 program tracks. One is all centered on professional development, how to differentiate in the job market, learning about yourself, how do you position that back in a way that drives value, and creating a framework that allows someone to continuously develop and advance in their own personal career journey. Then we have a technical track that provides access to a workforce development platform. The career path is all laid out in terms of training, lab certification that would then, direct the individual to being able to go after the role that they want to in cybersecurity. And then one-on-one mentorship is the third track. But all of the programs come with a mentor of another woman of color that's already in the space and kind of, leading the way back to the theme of representation and showing that it is actually possible. So these are all things that are really important. And the organization is driven by the members. I'm one person. I've had, access to an experience with a very finite set of things. And so I wanted to take a crowdsource approach with this organization where, hey, there's things that are table stakes, mentorship, study groups, a safe space, really. Ultimately, this is a safe space for women of color to come and ask questions they're afraid to ask and fail and feel okay about it. But let us know what you need. Is you want us to put on a webinar? Is there something you've always wanted to do and you need help facilitating it? So it really is just meant to empower women to do the things that maybe they just need that little push to believe they can do.
Wow. Again, I wish I was in New York to join this group.
You don't have to be in New York. Everyone, we have folks everywhere. I think one of our members is in New Zealand.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to check that out on your site.
All right.
For sure then. My last question.
Okay.
which relates back to the theme of Black History Month. How are you, Tia Hopkins, making history? How do you want to be remembered by the Black community?
I think the most important thing for me, for how I'm remembered, that's interesting. Um, it's important to me to be viewed as someone that lifts as I climb. Like I never want to just, keep progressing in my own career and just be throwing little nuggets from the top of a perceived mountain or iron tower or something like that. So, to the point of like sending the rope and helping people climb it or sending the elevator back down, that is critically important to me. Otherwise, my journey and everything I went through and the struggles and the challenges, if I'm not helping someone avoid those pitfalls, then it was all for nothing. It's just a cool story to tell, and it needs to be more than that. And so for me, that's what I want to be remembered as. And hopefully, I'm making history by diversifying the cybersecurity pipeline. As we like to say, hashtag paint the pipeline. I think that we talk about a leaky pipeline in the industry, but the real issue is that the pipeline is broken because you have all of these diversity and inclusion initiatives going on right now, and organizations are looking for diverse professionals already in the space. Well, what happens when you deplete that talent pool, right? What is being done to go all the way back to the beginning? And one, make sure the folks that are interested have what they need to succeed, and going even further back and making sure folks aren't self-selecting out of selecting tech as a career because they don't even believe they can be successful. So, hopefully what I'm doing is adding to that much needed initiative to drive more entry into the field from a diversification perspective.
I am so glad. You could say it better than I can. So I think I'm going to just take your clip and use it for Preparation Tech because we're totally aligned by this. Tia, this was a fantastic interview. Thank you so much for your time, your thoughts, your energy, and I wish you all the success in your professional life, your charity work, your philanthropic work, and also just in life in general. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.